Hello, Raiders, and welcome to our very first Raiders of Blackveil Developer Q&A. Now, before we jump into anything, I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who took the time out of their day to submit questions for this developer Q&A. We had a lot more questions than we had expected, and it's really cool to see a lot of you guys super excited to be a part of it. I also want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Chris, our creative director over at Raiders of Blackveil, for taking the time to sit down and answer these questions directly from the community. Before we jump in, I do want to mention one thing. We received a ton of questions. Some of the questions came from the forums on Steam, some of them came from the forums on Discord from a while ago. Some of these questions covered very similar topics, so we kind of smushed them together into a similar question that answers it all. But of course, some questions just didn't make the cut because this video is pretty long. But don't worry, if your question did not make the video, there will be multiple opportunities to ask these questions again, like another dev Q&A planned for the future. So don't worry, that will happen at some point soon. We also added some chapter timestamps in the description below because this is a very long video, so if there's a specific topic that you want to cover or you want to hear about, you can go in the description and jump around the video. Feel free to do so. Without being out the way, let's jump right into it. We're going to start off by talking about future content and champions, and for our first question for you, Chris, we currently have 4 playable champions and several empty slots on the character selection screen. Can you share anything about future champions, archetypes, or roles players can expect to see?
Yes, I can. At the moment, we have 2 new champions in very, very far, very deep into production, and they're actually set to release here during the summer. And we have planned many more champions in the future. We have 3 more actually in early to mid state production. So while we've been developing the Gulag update recently, which took a little longer than we had hoped, we've also been preparing some of the content that is supposed to be arriving within the next year or so, and that does include champions. And I'm really excited about showing them and seeing the community get them into their hands. We're looking at we're trying to broaden the entire roster of champions. So we're looking at adding some of the roles that are missing, some of the core fantasies and gameplay archetypes that are missing. Like that could, for example, be a melee-centric healer or support style character. It could be adding another defensive, more tankier character. We've also seen certain archetypes be requested quite heavily, archetypes that you would expect to be in this type of game. And we take that kind of feedback very serious. And at least one of the 2 that we're adding very soon to the game is, I think, quite heavily requested by the community.
Do you think maybe you could share something about these 2 new champions? Maybe their archetype or their weapon, or just something small, maybe a little sneak peek, some little snippet of
Yeah, man.
information.
I feel comfortable about sharing whatever you want.
Awesome.
You're the guy from the community marketing team.
We would love to hear at least a
Yeah.
little something
Oh,
something.
definitely. Yeah. So I can say that one of the champions that are being added is wielding a long bow. So we're getting an archer-centric type character
Awesome.
into the game. Yeah.
Awesome. Exciting. Okay, so going off of this same question, we have some more questions regarding the already existing champion pool that we have. Is there any plans on champion expansion regarding new talents or new systems or progression options for the existing champions that are in the game right now?
Yeah, so we were really, really happy with the implementation of the champion talent system. Like we've had this system on the drawing board for like way over a year. Like it's
Wow.
been such a we knew that this was such an important thing to add to the game because like playing the same character over and over, you need some variety in the behavior, in the kit, in the strategy. And we also want you to, like, the whole game is built around you being able to take your character in any kind of direction that you want. You might start out as a tankier or more support or ranged assassin or whatever type character, but then through perks and through champion talents and maybe even through equipment, you can modify that play style to fit with a team composition or to a specific, just something you're trying to play around with. And champion talents, we added that system, and this has really become the new kind of design space that we're the most excited about when it comes to champions. So there's definitely certain aspects of each existing champion that we would like to go in and modify. But at the moment, we're focusing on exploring the champion talent system. So let's say I have a desire to modify a certain ability on Beatrice, the druid healer character. Right now, we will go in and we will make a champion talent instead to try out that style of play or to try out that modification, and
Ah.
um, and then it's just going to stay as a champion talent unless we then learn that this is supposed to be part of the core kit. We don't really want to jump the gun right now and just start modifying characters that we think are actually playing fairly well. Nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Mhm.
But for now, we're definitely focusing on adding new champion talents and also just adding new champions and more content to the game.
All right, piggybacking off of the answer you just gave around upcoming content, looking ahead, what are some of the biggest areas of focus for the team over the next few updates? Kind of like the priority. Over the roadmap that released a couple months ago, obviously we have a general idea of what the focus is this year, but we kind of want to know what your priorities lie regarding those changes and any future changes that may be added to the roadmap or.
Yep. Yeah, so we're definitely still focusing on technical improvements for the game, stability and performance. We're tightly monitoring the feedback, and we know that multiplayer can be improved quite a bit, especially if like you're sitting far from each other, um, or the host has some network or connectivity issues or whatever. And so we're focusing on that, and that does include being able to save the game and exit a session mid-run and then being able to reconnect. It does also include if you crash or if the game closes in any way that you can continue your session in single player, but also in multiplayer. And here it doesn't matter whether it's the client or the host that crashes. Both of those scenarios will be taken care of. We're still, we're still exploring, how far we can allow players to break the game. Like, and this has been a theme for us since the Next Fest demo. It's not like I'm laughing, but it's not it's not funny at all. It eventually, when we released the Netflix demo, it basically meant that if you pushed the game far enough, you would eventually crash, and there was nothing you can do about it. This is
Right.
a year ago, and we're still figuring out like how far can we allow players to push the game, and this has a lot to do with the hardware you're playing on or whether you're playing in single player, multiplayer, what specific perks you're choosing, etc. So we're still working on that, but until we have settled on something that makes sense for all of us, we will make sure that you can continue playing even if you crash. um, so that's a part of the priorities. Then we are also adding new content, of course. That means new equipment, unique equipment pieces. That means new characters, playable characters, new biomes, and specifically the next one that we're working on right now. And then the big one for me, which is the equipment update and kind of, I wouldn't say it's a rework, but it's like equipment plus plus plus.
Awesome. I know a lot of those changes have been asked from the community for a very long time, especially resuming a run and allowing people to reconnect in multiplayer. So that's awesome. Can't wait to see that coming. You mentioned something about the future location, the new biome that you guys kind of started working on. Obviously, we understand that you can't share too much as it is in early stages, but can you share anything about maybe the location, the bosses, some secrets, unique items that are going to be added to it, anything like that that the
Mhm.
players can look forward to?
Well, I can tell you about the approach to the next biome, and actually it's kind of the same approach to the next two biomes that we're looking at. And that is that we would like to break up the flow of the game a little bit. So the existing three biomes we have now, they follow the same structure, and each biome has kind of a unique style, of course, a unique enemy pool, and also kind of this unique mechanic to it. With the harvest operation, it's the bases you have to destroy to spawn enemies, and with the gulag, it's the spotlight that you have to avoid. And we're trying to do a couple of things with the new biome. So we're trying to break up the flow, meaning that it's going to follow a different structure. We also are looking at the overall like session length of a run, because we don't necessarily want to make a roguelike where you have to sit for over an hour to go from the beginning to the final boss. So it's probably also going to be shorter in terms of the time you will spend in this biome. And right now, we're also looking at making it a little more exclusive than the existing three biomes. So right now, you can jump into any biome you want, and you can play it as the first or the last in a run. But with the fourth and fifth biome, that's not going to be the case. And that means that it gets to be a little more exclusive and thus also a little more rewarding and potentially some really interesting items that you can only find there. So it gives you a little bit more of a goal for each run. It means now I actually have to reach this fourth biome, and I can't replay it. So I can't loop it over and over. So I can't really farm those items. So I have to, can you can see where I'm heading with it.
Right.
And so that's like the core idea for Biome 4 right now. A little bit shorter, a little bit harder, and a little more exclusive, and kind of changing the pace of the game.
That's awesome. This is super cool. When designing a new champion, what usually comes first?
Mm.
Is it the gameplay fantasy or like the identity of the class itself, the weapons even, or the mechanics? Can you shed some light on how character
Yeah,
design kind of comes into play?
definitely. As so, this is one of the most fun parts of developing Raiders of Blackveil,
Mm.
and I can tell you that the developers of the game are also like severely hungry for adding new champions to the game. Like this is the thing that we really want to do, and we
Mhm.
are working on it right now, and it's so much fun. And where does the idea for a champion come from? It's very different. It can come from a nice drawing by someone in the studio. It can come from a similar game, or let's say a MOBA that you've played, and you want to take this specific idea of a champion kit and try to repurpose it, or change it or modify it or make it how you would have wanted it to work. So it can come from a gameplay mechanic, it can come from a cool drawing, but it can also come from like an archetype that is missing.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier in the discussion here, that we're making an archer character right now, and that was very much just because we felt like the game needed an archer, and I don't think we were alone here. I think a big part of the community agrees that you should have a proper archer in the game. So it can also come from something that is missing. We're always trying to broaden the variety of the champion roster as much as possible. And that does mean that, for example, if I'm making a new champion and that champion has a big sword, then the next champion will most likely not have a big sword,
Right.
but maybe we'll have a hammer or a crossbow or a flail, or,
Ooh.
something different. So we're always trying to mix that up. We're also looking at, Do we need more supports, or do we need more tankier characters? Do we need ranged or melee? And then finally, of course, this is Raiders of Blackveil, so there's the animals. Sometimes we're just saying that, listen, I think the aquatic animal world is underrepresented in the game. Let's make something from the sea, and then that kind of spawns from there, the idea and the concept. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think ultimately the guys that are working on Champions are like so passionate and so capable.
Mhm.
So we trust their instinct so much that they also just get to roll with the ball and make up the stuff that they think is cool.
All right. And then for our community surprise question as our final question in the future content and champions section, what's a feature, system, or piece of content that you personally are most excited for players to get their hands on? It could be something that you've already mentioned, something you haven't yet.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about all of it, everything that we
Right.
have to add. But there's definitely one thing right now that is kind of keeping me awake at night, because I just want to put it into the game ASAP, and that's the equipment system improvements or rework, because I think that by modifying the way that the players interact with equipment and like changing that system, and I know we'll be talking about it in a second,
Mhm.
but it hits so many of the core parts of the experience. It impacts your build diversity. It impacts your what you do in the lobby, like at Liberator, in between runs. It impacts the smuggler and the whole kind of extraction element of the game, where you have to balance what to send back to Liberator and what to keep in your inventory. It impacts those things so much, and of course, loot is such a central part of the experience. So it also impacts that naturally when it's the equipment rework. So basically, it just hits all of the core pillars in the game, and I think it makes all of them much better and makes them fit together much more. And it ties together, I think, the roguelike, the action RPG, the very small extraction element that we have in a very beautiful and very meaningful way. So I am super excited about those changes.
Awesome. All right, Chris, moving on to the next section, we are going to dive into endgame and replayability questions asked by the community. And to start off, we are going to go into endgame vision. What do you see as the primary long-term goal for players? Like, is it pushing higher difficulties, endgame, chasing better gear, experimenting with builds, mastering champions, something else entirely, or a combination of a few of those options? We'd love
Yeah,
to hear.
all of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, uh, it's a good question, and it's probably a question that I should be able to answer like
Uh-huh.
that. But the truth is that it is kind of everything that you mentioned right there. And we're talking about it internally in terms of the vertical progression and the horizontal progression of the game. And this is where the big kind of elephant in the room, or the big design dilemma uh, enters the arena,
Mhm.
which is trying to blend the action RPG genre with the roguelike genre. Because action RPGs, they have this massive vertical progression. You increase in levels, you get stronger, you get more powerful, you get more items, higher item levels. Like everything just moves in one direction for a very long time. And you also commit to that one direction typically quite firmly by
Mhm.
going into a very specific build and acquiring very specific gear and putting your talents in a very specific way and all that. So it becomes this
Right.
very, very specific direction. And that becomes your goal for that character or for that game. Whereas with roguelites, typically you have a much broader horizontal progression, where it's okay, I started with one character unlocked, but now I have two, and now I have five. I started with four perk classes unlocked, but now I have six or eight. one biome becomes three biomes, etc. So it's more like about the variety and the experimentation and the exploration of the game and learning the game. And Raiders of Blackveil is actually doing both. Like there's no beating around the
Right.
bush, there's no trying to hide from it. We're trying to do both. So you will be able to go into that loop that is the action RPG loop where you get more powerful or more gear, more equipment so that you can tackle higher difficulties. That loop is a little shorter than we would want at the
Hmm.
moment because you can go to Liberator difficulty fairly fast and you can start farming the gear there. But we definitely want to lengthen that vertical progression. But really, the horizontal progression is equally as important. So we would love to have players experiment with builds. I think it is also a sandbox of game mechanics where you can sit down one day and just say, you know what, I'm going to try to go in and take Beatrice and build her as a poison based assassin with armor or something, you
Yeah.
know. So just try out something that you haven't tried yet. And yeah, we're putting in some features to make that more obvious as well
Hmm.
with the equipment update. Features that will make it clearer how you can quickly, let's say, how you can quickly try out new sets of equipment. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the slightly vague
Yeah.
answer, which is that we're doing both things,
Hmm.
and also as a final note, I would add that we are also watching the community very closely and watching how players play the game and listening to the feedback and adjusting. And we want to keep adjusting based on that.
Awesome. Okay. And to play into that question a little bit more regarding replayability, it sounds like a lot of the new features that are being added adds a lot of replayability that doesn't already exist, and some extra end game goals for players. But what are some of the team's specific goals for improving long-term replayability and keeping runs fresh over time for, say, a veteran player with hundreds of hours?
Yeah. So that is again like both the power progression that you want to play to get more powerful equipment so you can beat higher difficulties. But I really also think that we want to broaden the entire experience. For early access, we did put in what we thought was the minimum amount of content for each biome that would make it replayable. So that means like the minimum amount of levels, the minimum like unique arenas, the
Mm-hmm.
minimum amount of biome specific unique mechanics, the minimum amount of mini bosses, the minimum amount of mystery rooms. Uh, we haven't even touched on like events or random stuff
Mm-hmm.
happening in the arenas. So broadening that entire part of the game, which is the roguelike part of the game, is something that we would love to do so that there's much, much, much longer between you doing a run and it feeling like a run that you've already done in the past. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. That is some new information. That's really cool and exciting. Okay, and this is a question that I'm sure you've already been asked, but we're going to ask it here again. Regarding early access, over the past few months, what has been kind of the biggest lesson the team has learned from early access that changed how you're approaching development? Obviously, early access didn't launch in the way that you would have expected, and we kind of want to know what the team has learned and going forward, what systems are in place to prevent any of that to happen again.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, well, don't do online only when you release the game.
Right.
That was a tough lesson.
Mm-hmm.
One that was made with the best intentions, but proved out to be a bad decision. I think we have always been optimistic with our deadlines and our timelines and what we can do and what we can't do. We're a team driven by passion, and we get so excited about what we do, and we want to put it into the hands of the users, of the players. And we need to be more strict with our testing, and we need to be more strict with our like pipeline processes, to use a very not so sexy word. So it's so we're taking testing way more serious, which is kind of an unfortunate beginner mistake. But we're testing with the community, we're testing with external partners that are helping us testing it, not just in Europe, but across the world on different types of internet connections, different types of machines. We're also, let's say, making sure that the scope of the game and each update is fitting with what we know that we can deliver now, because we've gotten much better at understanding the capabilities of the group, of the team, what we can do, what we can't do, when does it feel like we've taken on too much. And we've changed the philosophy, kind of completely, which was before early access. It was more like, let's just get it into the hands of the players and let's hear what they have to say. We know there's going to be some issues, but we're learning and we're making it with the players. Like that was the philosophy before. But now it's become more of a let's let's wait until it's done
Right.
and then get it into the hands of the players, because it doesn't ultimately change the the ability to get feedback or to modify or to change anything, but it just means that we're not giving you a half-baked bread.
Right.
uh, yeah, so I think, yeah, hopefully you can kind of string together from what I'm saying that we've changed the mindset in the organization. We are taking testing more serious. We are taking scope more serious, and we're using people outside of the company to help us with those things. And I think it was a great improvement with the Gulag update. So I think it is working, and it will only get better. You know, we're so eager to learn and to develop and to become better at what we're doing,
Mhm.
all of us. So just we will continue to deliver these updates, minor and major, and we'll continue to become better at hitting them on time and making sure that they are properly tested and completed.
All right, our next segment of the Q&A, we're going to be talking about equipment, loot, and build crafting. Definitely one of the most anticipated segments of the Q&A. And to start off, regarding the equipment rework system coming in the summer update, which we have touched on already in the previous questions, but now we have a specific question for it. The roadmap, obviously, mentions the system. Item re-rolling specifically, modification, upgrading. Are there any more details that you can share about what players can expect from this new feature and slash system?
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know how much I can share of like specifics because
Mhm.
it is still in development, and I might risk saying something that doesn't make it into the first version of the game, of the release. But what I can definitely say is why we chose to do this, to look at equipment again and say we need to improve this system significantly. It's actually kind of funny because when we back in the day when we started working on the game, equipment was not that big a part of the game. It was more like a soft meta progression that that didn't really have that big of an impact on the experience necessarily, but it gave you something that was fun to pick up and to equip. But it became very clear from some of the early playtests that most people or some people just really like loot. And if there's loot in the game, they want to play the game. And I think personally, I'm also one of those um, people. So we decided to go deeper into that um, system and to expand it and to make it more akin to an action RPG and more closer to the version that you're seeing in the game right now. But this is also the reason why it may seem a little bit unfinished in some aspects, because it was added a little bit later. Those parts of like the randomly generated and the stat pools and the suffix groups. You can find gear that is associated with guardians or warriors or warlocks, etc. So I'm extremely excited about adding this next iteration of the equipment system. And there's really three things that we're trying to accomplish with this system. And the first one is that we want to give players more control or agency, as it's called, over the loot that they find. So right now in the game, when a piece of equipment is dropped, it's generated immediately, it's picked up, and it's frozen in time, and nothing can be done to change it. And that puts a lot of pressure on that moment when the equipment drops. And that also means that it becomes a very binary situation, because it becomes I can use it or I can't use it.
Mhm.
And the further you go into the more you play the game, the higher the chance for it becoming I can't use it increases drastically. And that just means that now you are carrying around a piece of trash that you don't need. And of course, you can sell it for some scrap, but you don't really need that when you're in the late game, right now at least. So that was the, I'm actually leading into the next reason why
Yeah.
we did this. But the first reason was more agency and more control. So you are able to manipulate and modify the items that you find in various ways. And that also gives you some stuff to do in the lobby that kind of gives you this more like a preparation vibe while you're at the Liberator, which is something we really wanted in the game. We wanted you to spend a little bit of time in the Liberator and like think about what am I bringing to the next raid, what am I what am I doing with my resources, etc. So that's really exciting. The next one is, which I was getting into, is that we want to basically make sure that everything you find in the game has a value to you. Grays, greens, purples, blues, but not just that. Also, you might be looking for a specific type of item. So you might be looking for boots or chests, or you might be looking for items that are of the assassin category or of the druid category. And we are going to give you incentives to hunt for those specific items and extract them and repurpose them and use them for something something else. So give you more make sure that everything you find has a value. And then the last one is a larger resource economy. And that's because we do have this extraction layer in the game, but it's very underutilized at the moment. It's exciting for the first couple of hours where you play, where everything is new, but then eventually you have so much resource and you know exactly what equipment you want that you, some people at least, basically stop interacting with the smuggler, because why should I? And we want to make sure that that is not how that system is used. So a lot of new crafting materials and resources that are of extremely high value to you, that it should ideally be like, I'm terrified to die right now because I'm carrying so much good stuff in my bags and I don't have the room in my safe slots, and I need to get to the smuggler as soon as possible so I can get it home. So I'm really excited about like improving those three aspects of the game with this new system and all those changes.
Making less cargo more prominent in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so that kind of played into our next question. You answered it sort of, but uh,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, Raiders of Blackveil sits somewhere between an ARPG and a roguelite. How does the team approach balancing permanent gear progression with the randomness that makes roguelites exciting?
Yeah. This is not an easy one, but like I told you before we started recording, that the game as it is right now is that when you download it and you start playing in the beginning, it feels very much like a roguelite with some action RPG elements, like some loot and a lot of stats and an inventory and a stash in the base and those kind of things. And that's basically how it feels in the beginning. It's very much a roguelite. It's dynamic decisions, and you don't have a lot of control over the build that you're making. You have to make do with what the game presents you with and try to string it together to something that is powerful enough for you to beat the game or to continue playing. But as you keep playing and you find more loot and you get more currency and you unlock more of the meta progression, the game starts to morph into more of an action RPG with roguelite elements. So now it actually becomes more a question of what is the gear that I'm wearing? Okay, I'm wearing a pull bleed centric item set. So now I actually actively want to hunt for warrior perks. And then the game gives you, through the Atlas upgrades and through reroll tokens in particular, it gives you the control over the build that you want so that you can match it to the equipment that you are wearing. But we're very conscious about not giving you too much control over everything, but we definitely want to give you, at the moment at least, enough control over the per class that you are selecting, because it's really the class that is determining what status effects can appear on perks. So if you're looking for bleed effects, then you really want warrior. Um, and we don't want to deny you getting warrior if you've played the game for that long and you've invested in a gear set that ties into bleed and you've gotten a lot of reroll tokens, etc. Yeah,
Okay, so
I don't
that
know.
kind
I
of
can't barely remember what the question was. That's why.
I mean, you answered it. It's all good. It also kind of played into our next question, which is a question that I think is one of the most important here in this Q&A, is equipment
All right.
identity. You mentioned that at the start of Raiders of Blackveil, equipment identity doesn't really play that much of a role because you don't have equipment. You kind of just play equip with what you got, and then you play off of the perks that you get early on. And then as you progress and you start getting pieces of gear later in the game ends up becoming like the defining factor, or one of the main defining factors of a build going into a run. Is that the case? And is that the case in the future? Or are you planning on changing that?
Yeah. So no plans on changing that at the moment, but we're listening to the feedback, and we do have a lot of ideas for um, how you could, for example, change your equipment loadout mid-run if that
Ooh.
is what you wanted for it to fit your perks better. But at the moment, we are working on the the principle that equipment will give you the strategic starting point for your build, and then we will give you enough control over which perk class you are presented with during the run, so that you can match the the equipment with the perk class. However, that's everything else will be more or less the dynamic and sort of random roguelite experience. And because if you go in, let's say you're looking specifically for assassin perks because you're wearing poison gear.
Right.
Let's use that as an example.
Mm.
You can still branch from assassin into warrior, into guardian, into priest, into monk, and they all have dual perks that function with poison. So even though you are reliably getting that main class that you want, or those two main classes, then you still have to decide which classes am I branching into, and you might not have as much control over that as you would like. You still have to decide what risk you're willing to take going into elites or super elites and mini bosses, what currencies you're looking for in this run. Um, so yeah, I think at the moment that is how the game is structured.
Mhm.
You have the strategic starting point, which is your equipment, and then you try to make your perks fit that. But we are open to modifying that eventually. If if we feel like the game is heading in should be heading in that direction.
Awesome. So, actually, regarding perk agency, a couple months ago, a new item was added to the game. Reroll tokens. Reroll tokens lets you reroll your perk choice so that you have more agency over which perk you get.
Hmm.
This has ended up becoming a big topic within the community, where reroll tokens have kind of become a major part of how players kind of approach runs, especially late game. How does the team currently view reroll tokens, and what role do you want them to play in the future?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question.
Mhm.
Um, I'm, I'm not sure if I have the like a very strict answer to it.
Mhm.
But I think we as players will always gravitate towards the systems that give us agency over the game, especially if we are trying to do well and we're trying to get far. If we're trying to do something specific and we have a very clear idea what we want. There are some players that treat the game Raiders of Blackveil more like a toy or like a fun experience where they don't they're not looking for a specific strategic combination, but they're just enjoying whatever the game presents them with. And to those kind of players, the reroll token is much less meaningful. But to the players that are really trying to optimize and min-max, a system like the reroll token is going to be extremely attractive. And personally, I don't mind the way that it is right now. I think it is something that can be farmed quite easily now that we've reduced the price. And that means that you can enjoy the game or the system with a lot of agency and a lot of control over what you want each run. And you don't have to rely on uh, randomness as much. But this is also something that comes when you've played for quite a few hours and you've gotten to that point of the game. And at the moment, we're quite happy with it. It gives you control over the game. It allows you to do what you want. And if we didn't do reroll tokens or if we made them much more expensive, then there would need to be something else that gave you that agency over the game. I remember there's been a lot of suggestions actually before the reroll token that we should allow players to ban certain perk categories before heading into a run, so that they could really specify what perks they want. So what we're seeing is players want control over what perks
Right.
they're getting, and well, you have the reroll token for that at the moment.
Of course. And like everything, you'll be looking closely at feedback regarding your role tokens, and in early access, you'll be applying things as needed to change anything.
100%. Like that's why we reduced the crafting price for the reroll token because players had, was a core part of the meta of the game. You needed those tokens to perform well, but they took a little too long to acquire,
Mhm.
and that wasn't really the intention. We don't want you to sit and grind reroll tokens to have fun with the game, so they might as well be cheaper.
Awesome. Okay. Currently, regarding specialized stats and archetypes that are rolled on gear, many players currently and abilities built into character kits. Many players currently gravitate towards universal stats like attack damage, critical strike. How do you view more specialized stats and archetypes such as bleed, burn, poison, shock, etc. going forward?
Hmm. I mean, the very short answer is that it is our goal to balance the game perfectly and to make sure that everything is valid and viable. Um, so it is our goal to have status effect based builds like bleed, curse, poison, and burn to be uh, just as potent and just as capable for clearing the hardest content in the game as an attack slash crit focused build. When that is said, there are some natural mechanics that are kind of fighting against us a little bit. Your attack will always be extremely powerful in Raiders of Blackveil because of the way that it's implemented. You can do it very quickly, you can attack very frequently, There's no cooldown. You can hit multiple targets at the same time, and you can scale it very, very effectively with attack damage, which is then multiplied by anything you put on top, such as bless or critical strike chance, critical strike damage, enrage, fury. Like there's many percentage multipliers that you can increase this very frequent attack. So it is like a obviously very powerful part of the game, and it always will be. I don't think that part goes away. That attack is the thing that you do all the time when you're fighting. Um, we also do have a lot of perks that are on hit based. We actually have a disproportionate amount of perks that are on hit based compared to on defense, on special, on ultimate, or just on nothing, but just a passive effect. So that makes attack even more prominent in the meta. Is that you can attack constantly and you can trigger all these effects constantly. Um, when you look at stuff like bleed and burn and poison and curse, they have a really unfair advantage at the moment. And that is that you can only increase the scaling of those stats by a percentage. So you can get 10% increased curse damage, you can get 100% increased curse damage, you can get 1000% increased curse damage, but it will always only increase the initial value of what the damage that curse was doing in the beginning. Whereas with attack, your attack scales both as a flat value, but also as a percentage multiplier. So they just cannot compete at the moment because of the way that the game is built. And I think we want to change that. And one way you could do that is you could allow these status effects to scale as a flat value as well. So you would get plus 10 poison damage, plus 5 burn damage to each tick. So you would get these flat values that would be increasing, which would then make those percentage multipliers way more
Right.
attractive. So we're aware of it, we're looking into it, and we want to do something about it. And it's not technically hard, it's not artistically hard, it's mostly a balance thing. And balance is something we'll be doing throughout the entire life
Right.
of the game, but we definitely want to start spending, a little more time on it in a more serious manner right now, especially when after the next couple of content updates where the game starts to feel more like a whole game.
Mhm.
And at that time, we will also have all the knobs and all the levers and everything that we can twist and turn so we can make it fit exactly the way we want.
Awesome. All right, Chris, on to the next segment. We are going to be talking strictly about multiplayer. A lot of people had some questions regarding multiplayer and multiplayer priorities. So, obviously, multiplayer has been the most discussed topic in the community since early access. What are some of the team's priorities when it comes to improving the multiplayer experience?
That is a priority. I
Yes,
would
yeah,
say overall, like that is a priority,
of course.
definitely. We are working on it basically all the time. Some of these things with multiplayer, they take longer to test and they take longer to find like reliable reproductions of issues. They can sometimes be quite specific to certain areas or certain situations. So unfortunately, they take a little longer to investigate and to solve, but they are happening ongoing all the time. There's never not a person at the studio not working specifically and only on multiplayer improvements. And that ranges from the server list to the hosting experience to the client experience to multiplayer specific issues, minor, major bugs. It it is stability, it is performance optimization. related to multiplayer. It's all of those things basically. And we're always working on that. We're committed to multiplayer and we don't think it's good enough and we want to make it a lot better. So being able to reconnect as a client is something that we're working on right now, and it's progressed really far. So if you do get a crash or if you do disconnect, you can rejoin that session. We're also working on making that work for the host. So if the host crashes, they can rehost the session and the clients can reconnect to that session and they can continue their run. And it also includes a save and resume feature for single player at least, where you can stop the run mid session and then you can restart it from your past save. And I think that will be like the end or the start of the last arena that you reached. So that's great news and something that we're excited about.
Awesome. Something people have been asking for a while, so I'm sure they're going to be really excited to hear that.
Rightfully so, I would add.
Yeah. For our final segment, we are going to be quick firing some miscellaneous questions from the community. Regarding progression wipes, will there be progression wipes such as when full release comes out? Or major updates after full release seasonally?
We don't have any plans on wiping anyone's progression anytime soon. It was kind of a commitment we made also when we went into early access and we wiped the progression from everyone from the demo that we had before that. That from there on out we would work towards not having to clear everyone's inventory or resets everyone's progression. That being said, it is an early access, so we might introduce new systems and mechanics that will make, let's say, for example, the equipment that you found weaker than new equipment that you can acquire. But we will not remove that equipment from your bag. We will allow you to do what you want to do with it. Keep it as a trophy or sell it to the merchant. So things might be made redundant as we go, but they will not be removed from your account and we will not reset your progression. Seasons I can't really speak to at this moment. Obviously, any game that resembles an action RPG lends itself very well to seasons due to that vertical progression we talked
Right.
about earlier. It's all about you becoming stronger, and at some point, you just can't get any stronger and you need some kind of reset. But at the moment, we don't have planned to start rolling out seasons uh, before 1.0.
Cool, cool. Regarding long-term development following 1.0 release for Raiders of Blackveil, how do you currently view the game's journey after full release? Is the goal to continue expanding Raiders of Blackveil with new content systems for years to come? Are you guys planning on being as aggressive with new content following 1.0 as you are in early access? What's the game plan after 1.0?
Well, we definitely want to continue to support Raiders of Blackveil after 1.0. We don't consider the game to be done at 1.0 in terms of the content that we want to add. We have so many verticals in the game where we can give new content for free, and we want to do that. So that's new champions, new equipment, more content in general, also more polish, also bug fixing. We're also looking to expand the game to consoles. So that would be Xbox and PlayStation and Switch. But we will be spending some time on that after 1.0 or leading up to 1.0. So the cadence of updates will be slower in 1.0. You know, when you're in early access, you're really pushing yourself to deliver the most aggressive content pipeline that you can, because you are not a finished project. You have invited people to be part of it, and they have paid to be part of it. So you really want to uh, finish the game as quickly as you can while you're in early access. after 1.0, our priorities will switch a little bit, but it will 100% still be delivering updates as frequently as we can.
Last question of today's Q&A. It is about the Blackveil lore. Raiders of Blackveil is described as a world where animals are oppressed by the Blackveil Corporation. Can you share more about the lore and the world building behind Blackveil itself, and maybe how you're going to progress that outwards in the future?
That is a good question. And that is something I could be talking about, I think, for a very long time. It was always the intention for us to build a game within an original IP, something that we could have control over and where we could tell the story and build the universe and establish the characters that we wanted to make. Up until this point, we've focused on having the lore and narrative and the world be kind of the canvas on which the game is played, and not really jump into the face of the player too much. We have a little onboarding, we have a little premise in the tutorial and in the intro cinematic and those things, and they kind of establish what the game is about. But from there on, it's mostly visual storytelling and you kind of having to piece things together yourself. And this is something that we really want to expand on in the future. We still have things that we want to put into the existing biomes that help convey what is actually happening in those biomes. You know, small little things that are happening in the background, more machines from Blackveil doing interesting, funny, whimsical, grim things. You know, we are really trying to hit this balance of a light-hearted style, but with a serious undertone. So we have a lot of visual storytelling that we can do. We also have some ambitions of, let's say, telling a more complete story, that you have a feeling in your first playthrough at least that you are actually going through a specific narrative, so to speak. I don't want to. I'm using that word very lightly because it might. We're not doing Red Dead Redemption, but it's
Yep.
like there's going to be more of a red thread between the biomes. There's also going to be more unlocking than what is currently in the game right now. At the moment, you have very easy access to everything that we give you because we are early access and we're doing it as a sandbox type experience, and we want feedback on everything by everyone. So the whole narrative and the whole lore and the whole world is going to be more fleshed out as we get closer to 1.0. And you know, it means something to us, the world that we've established, and it is frustrating not being able to communicate it or tell it more clearly in
Right.
its current state. But I have to say this, we are prioritizing gameplay first when we are making the decisions on what to work on and what to spend time on. And we want the core loop to be satisfying, and we want the systems to be interesting, and we want the depth and the width of the gameplay content to be there. It is a game that is gameplay first, but when that said is done, we did create this world with an intention of telling a story, however mysterious it might be or abstract it might be. That there are some, we do have some things we want to put out there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. That was the last of our questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer some of the community's questions, and we're looking forward to have you on our next Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.
Yay.